Good morning. It's Wednesday the 4th of September 2024 and my walk around Tintern begins here on the Wireworks bridge. Now this is called the Wireworks bridge because part of Tintern's history was making wire. So we'll have a look now as we go along. Wireworks Bridge, built in 1876 to provide a rail link to the lower Wireworks site. The Wireworks Bridge is a visible reminder of Tintern's industrial past. On my left is Abbey Mill, and apparently there's been a mill here for hundreds of years. So at different times the mill has milled corn, forged iron, made wire, and more recently sawn timber. Beyond Abbey Mill, I turned right to follow Forge Road. After a 5-minute walk, I reached Lower Wireworks car park. Can you hear the babbling Angidy River? Today, this is the sound of nature, but in the past, it was the sound of industrial energy, the water power which turned the wheels of industry in this valley since the 1560s. This wall is all that remains of the lower Wireworks. So let's just read and see what it says on here. It was one of a string of interconnected industrial sites which stretched up the Angidy Valley. What happened here? Tintern Wireworks, estimated 1566. This was the site of a large industrial complex which for 3 centuries produced thousands of tons of wire and employed hundreds of wire workers. 7 buildings covered this site, including 2 forges, a scouring mill, rolling mill and the wire drawing mill, which were powered by 4 water wheels. The wire made here was the end result of a process which began at Tintern Abbey furnace, where the iron needed to make the wire was smelted. Some of the finest wire in the country was made here in the 1500s and shipped as far away as Turkey and the Barbary coast. By the 19th century, when Britain was supplying manufactured goods around the world, Angidy wire was said to have been used in the first transatlantic telegraph cable. Turning right out of the car park, I continued up Forge Road, soon forking left up a lane, and then along a footpath between houses. So I'm following part of the Angidy Trail, which follows the valley of the Angidy River. Now the Angidy River flows into the River Wye by Abbey Mill and the Wireworks Bridge. But on one of my recent walks, I did sort of meet up with a section of the Angidy River further upstream, but I'm not going up that far today. So this path is actually the route of a long leat which provided water to the blockhouse, hammer house and the lower Wireworks site. This is the Bible Christians Chapel, established to serve the expanding non-conformist community of Chapel Hill. Now this building I'm passing on my right, this big white building, I think is Valley House, which appears on a survey of 1764 and was home to one of the ironmasters between 1820 and 1840. So the new houses that I'm passing now, they replaced an earlier building which was a pub called the Globe. This area was the site of the Middle Wireworks, which extended up to the valley where Crown Cottages now stand. Primrose Cottage, which is this white house behind me built right over the Angidy River, was once called Barrels, probably referring to one of the wire making processes carried out here. Iron oxide scale, which formed on the outside of the wire rods, was removed by scouring and placing the wire in rotating barrels which contained crushed slag from the furnace. I emerged at the road in front of Chapel Cottage. Turning left onto the road, I then went immediately right along a footpath behind the cottages. So around here, possibly, was the location of the Chapel Wireworks, which were also called Oil Mill, as oil as in OYL. After a very short distance along this footpath, there are two steep drops off to the right. These are probably where water was carried in a leat to the two water wheels at Chapel Mill below. Sufficient height needed to be gained for the water to flow over the top of the water wheel, and at this point it's easy to see the difference in height between the leat and the Angidy River below. The path now follows the route of a wide and well constructed leat which carried water for over half a mile from a storage pond to the water wheels at the Chapel and Middle Wireworks. Where the track forked at a waymark, I bore right down to the riverbank. This was the site of the tilting mill, or tilting hammer mill, where the iron bars were cut into long rods. The iron bars were heated and then placed under a huge hammer. A man had to turn the iron rods very fast so that no two strokes hit on the same place, and gradually the iron rods were lengthened into a coarse, rough sort of wire. The path rose beside a dam, where I reached a pond, today used by local anglers. A constant supply of water was vital for the iron and wire works, so a series of dams and storage ponds were built. This pond supplied power for the tilting mill below the dam. Artificial channels, called leats, were constructed to carry the water from the storage ponds to the water wheels. Many of these leats remain today as footpaths. path emerged onto the lane below Abbey Tintern furnace. I turned left and walked into the furnace site on the right. This is Abbey Tintern furnace. Not Tintern Abbey furnace, Abbey Tintern furnace. Oh, wow. This furnace was the focal point of a large industrial operation stretching along the Angidy. Wire making was a skilled and slow process, requiring the coordination of different activities at different sites. The iron cast here was moved to the forge, slitting mill and the wire drawing mills as it was transformed into wire. Hundreds of people were employed in one of the first integrated industrial complexes in the country. The Angidy was a cradle of industry before the Industrial Revolution. So those cottages in the hillside at the back are furnace cottages, and they are where the furnace workers and their families would have lived. So this footpath follows the route of yet another leat, which supplied water from a pond further up the valley. A steady flow of water was absolutely vital to feed the water wheel which drove the bellows, blowing air into the furnace to keep the temperature constant. My path re-emerged onto the lane at another pond. Records show that a new forge site was working behind the pond in 1672 to 1673. And this is Tintern Cross. I remember this place from when I was a kid. It was one of the many places that my granddad used to drive through, and that was the times when he used to ride around in his car. I don't know why we would have come this way, but to say, my granddad from Chepstow went everywhere locally, so that is how, before I got into walking, that I got to know all these places. This hamlet, known as Pont-y-Saeson, or Tintern Cross, marks the highest of the industrial sites along the Angidy, some 2 miles above the tidal dock at Abbey Mill. In this little hamlet, 2 rows of cottages remain. They were once homes for the workers at the Wireworks. So I'm just going to be following this lane and walk right round the pond to the other side, and then I'll just make my way back to Tintern. Well, there's a bloke just there having fun with a chainsaw. I think I'll leave him to it. So, the Angidy continues upstream, but this is where I leave it for today. If I was to follow the lane beside the Angidy, just a little bit further up there, I'd be at the Vedder, and then up to Vedder Wood where I was the other day. But I'm going to continue on down this way, which will take me back round the other side of the pond, and as I say, I'm going to head back towards Tintern now. So I'm guessing that this wall is the remains of the New Tongs Mill. The upper Wireworks, or New Tongs Mill, built around 1803 by ironmaster Robert Thompson, was located on the hillside to your left. Some stone retaining walls and the remains of an annealing furnace are now all that is left. From Tintern Cross, I retraced my steps, making my way back to Tintern. Well, I really enjoyed my walk up the Angidy Valley and part of the Angidy Trail. Really nice. And it was nothing too strenuous either, which is always a bonus. Okay, well, I'm just making my way back towards my guest house now.